It's time for the last tooth update because, as you can see, my braces are gone. I got my braces off almost exactly 2.5 months ago. Let me back up a little bit for anyone who hasn't been following along. I started documenting my orthodontic journey because I was an adult who still had a baby tooth in the front. So one of my front bottom incisors was still a baby tooth, and I'll show a picture of that now. I had a baby tooth in the front, and I always had it my whole life. I just didn't have an adult tooth underneath. I have a sibling who has the same thing. It's a genetic hereditary thing. I never really wanted to have to make decisions about it, wanted to let kind of technology, you know, get as far ahead as possible before I ever did anything about my tooth. And frankly, maybe I'm a slob, I don't know. I'm just a plain Jane, whatever. It just never really bothered me that much. Just actually a couple days ago turned 36. So I'm 36 years old now. When I was 17, 18, I had braces for about 1.5 years. And at that time, that tooth, the baby tooth, the root was really strong and long. And so instead of putting braces on it, putting a bracket on it, we just left it alone and did braces on all my other teeth around it. So I've just always, you know, had teeth that are fairly straight, but then just a little baby tooth in the front. Fast forward to a little over 2 years ago, I went to the dentist, and he, you know, just for like a regular checkup, and he noticed that the tooth was loose. And he was like, "Oh, your tooth is loose. I guess it's time for us to deal with it." Other than living on the East Coast for a couple of years ago, I've been seeing this dentist for probably over 10 years. So he's really familiar with my mouth, really familiar with my teeth and everything. And so all these years we've just kind of been keeping a watch on it, because he said, you know, this baby tooth, anyway, the natural process of, you know, the adult tooth underneath kind of eroding and eating away at the root of my baby tooth wasn't happening. And so he said, you never know, the baby tooth might last, you know, till you're in your 60s or till you're in your 40s, or it could get loose anytime. So a little over 2 years ago, I went in and he was like, okay, it's loose, so it's time to start talking about the options. Basically, I had primarily two options. One option, and again, like I said, I'm sorry if you're like, this is boring, I already know all this. He said basically I had essentially two options. One was to pull the tooth out and just close the space with braces, which is actually what we ended up doing, but it's the option that it was very resistant to doing. And then the other option was to pull the tooth out. If I could do braces to open the space, that'd be good, because the space where the baby tooth was only about, I think it's millimeters, like 4.5 millimeters, and he said I need like 7 millimeters of space. So, you know, if I'd be willing to do braces, they're really expensive and a total pain, you know, just to kind of open the space to have a regular size implant. If not, he said, you know, we could just do like a skinny implant in that place. It's like an implant, you know, it's just a fake tooth where they drill into the bone. So he said, you know, I know that you really want to do the implant, but that's really invasive. I think that you should, you know, talk to an orthodontist or two and just see what they say. A few years ago, so we live in one state, and about 4 years ago we moved to another state, and we were there for a couple years, and then we came back a couple years ago, and now we're back where we were before. But where we live, I wasn't born. Okay, so there are like lots of different places. Before we moved out of state, my husband actually had braces. So we just went back to that orthodontist because he's like top notch. He's very meticulous and super duper picky, and like the total opposite of lazy. So we went to him and he said, yeah, we could do the implant, but just because of how my teeth were, he said the midline, so like the line in the middle between my two front teeth on the top and the bottom, he said your midlines won't line up just because of how your teeth are. And you know, I've had root canals and stuff, so I have a lot of dental work, particularly in the back, that he would have to work with. And so he said, you know, if we do the implant, we're going to be drilling into your bone in the front. Implants do a lot better in the back, so the bone will be somewhat compromised, and that's that. And then he also said, but your midlines would still be off, and you know, we just don't know how the implant would take right there. And you know, really, implants are better done if it's not just for cosmetic purposes. And he said, you know, it just so happens that if we take out one of your front lower incisors, you may not really notice it cosmetically, and you can still have symmetry in your mouth, because instead of having the two, you know, incisors in the front, you'll just have one. So it'd still be symmetrical. So anyway, like I said, I was really reluctant. I asked a handful of friends what they thought, and I ended up going with I did the braces and just closed the space and didn't implant. So I had braces for about 21.5 months, so almost 2 years. My orthodontist did Damon braces. I wore elastics a lot, and anyway, it was a process. So I got the orthodontics on, and then about 3.5 to 4 months into it, I went to my dentist and he pulled my tooth out. Then I went back to my orthodontist, and you know, then he just started the process of aggressively closing the bottom space. So for a little while, I looked kind of like a hockey player, and I'll show you a picture of that now. So that's what I looked like right after my tooth was pulled out. Then we closed the space. That happened sort of quickly. It probably took 6 to 8 months for it to totally close. And then after that, it was probably about a year of getting my bite right. So basically where we ended up with my teeth is my top teeth are pretty much perfect. My bottom teeth are pretty much perfect, but my bites don't align perfectly. So because I'm missing a tooth, I have somewhat of an overbite. You can kind of see it. Let me see if I can show you from the side. I don't know if you can see that or not. But anyway, so you can see. There you go. I have a little bit of lip stain on my teeth. Okay. Anyway. I have a little bit of an overbite. And frankly, the fact that my bite doesn't align does bother me somewhat. They were very, very tweaky, and I had braces for almost a year longer than they thought I would, just because we were all being very tweaky, which I appreciate. This is as good as we could get it. I don't regret making the decision to just close the space. It's just how it is, you know. But yeah, my teeth don't nestle together perfectly. So you can see where I should have a line on the bottom for my midline. Instead, I have a tooth there. Anyway, so that's where we ended up. I'm not bothered by it, but you can see even on the bottom, like the gums, you know, they dip down on the tooth and then they go back up. They're like the gums, jeez. The gums meet a little bit differently between these two teeth, that one and that one, because that's where those two teeth wouldn't typically be next to each other. That's where the baby tooth would be. So it almost looks like there's like extra gum there. Let me show you. Can you see it right there? Anyway, maybe it's just me. So I have retainers that I wear. Oh, I actually have a permanent retainer too. So on the bottom, because I am missing a tooth, these teeth down here naturally want to separate. It's going to be a while before the bone and the muscles and everything are fully formed to kind of how my teeth are now. So I have a permanent retainer between my 5 bottom teeth, so from canine to canine. And so when I floss, I still have to use one of those threader things. So I'll show you on the bottom. It's in the back. It's just a wire. Do you see that? Anyway, I've mentioned this before too, but I was born without an adult tooth, and I was also born without tonsils. So I don't know what genes those are, but I don't remember the name of this kind of retainer. That's not the retainer, that's not the retainer, that's the retainer case. Let me get this open. They're seriously dirty and gross. But they're just trays that are formed to my teeth. I'll put the top one in. So that's the top one, and then I have a bottom one too. So anyway, so the permanent retainer in there is permanent, meaning it doesn't come out, it's there all the time. I will probably have it just till it falls out. And then the retainers I just wear at night. At this point, for 6 weeks, I wore them all the time except for when I eat. And now I try to wear them for 12 hours at night, but it doesn't always work out that way. You know, while I'm standing here, I should probably also mention, so I do bleach my teeth. I use this stuff, it's called Plus White. It's like $5 or maybe $6 at Walmart. I've never seen it at Target. You basically, this is the tray that you use. So just in terms of talking about bleaching my teeth. Oh, and when I got my braces off, they scraped like all the glue off. And when they scraped all the glue off that was on my teeth, all of the staining from like food and smoothies and stuff that was on my teeth all came off. My teeth were actually still fairly white after they did that. These are just from athletic, like wrestling or football mouth guards that you buy. These are 97 cents before tax at Walmart, and so I just bought 2. You can buy the youth size. This is the youth size, or the adult size. They're really not that different. But so I have one for the top, one for the bottom, and I just squeeze out some of that Plus White. It's like the consistency of toothpaste, but it's totally clear. And I put it on Q-tip, and then I just dab it on my teeth, and then I stick the tray in. And I leave the trays in actually for 10 minutes, even though it says 5 minutes on the packaging. As long as you put it on the Q-tip and then put it on your teeth with the Q-tip, instead of just squirting it into the trays, you probably won't have a problem with your gums, because my gums are extremely sensitive and I don't have a problem with it when I do the Q-tip method. That's that. So I'm happy with how they came out. They're not as great as anyone else's would be if they weren't missing a tooth, but they're pretty awesome. Like I've said before, my genes are very, very old. Obviously I have, you know, ancestors who lived a long time ago who had this problem, who didn't have orthodontics or bleach. You know, when I think about it like that, I just think, yeah, okay, I'll take the awkward bite. And it's not totally awkward. I mean, you probably can't even tell by looking. Sometimes I notice it. I just kind of have to move my mouth around a little more to get really hard contact in different areas. If you have any questions, let me know. If there's something else I can address, I'd be happy to. Otherwise, this is it.